few variations described about the prophet, peace be upon him, in terms of his function. So Rasula minhum, so he's a messenger from them. And we've spoken about the fact that the prophets are from their own people, right? That they're raised among their own people, they know their own people, they're speaking the same language, the people know them, they trust them automatically. Yatlu alayhim ayatuka. So reciting to them your ayahs. Okay? So this is one function of the prophet. Essentially, reciting, here's what Allah Ta'ala has revealed. Another one, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابِ, and teaching them the kitab. Here, teaching them the kitab would essentially be the law, the prescription, right? I mentioned before that kitab, translated as book, is fine, but prescription I think I like better. Because kutiba alaykum as-siyam, written for you is fasting. Kutiba alaykum al-qital, written for you is fighting, same root word. Okay, so second function. Third function, wal hikmah, and teaching them the hikmah. So understanding of the law. Imam Shafi'i says the kitab and the kitab is the Quran and the hikmah is the sunnah. That's his reading. Meaning the kitab is the Quran and the sunnah is the Quran in practice.
Who'd you say?
Imam Shafi'i. I don't remember where he says it, but this is something that was taught to me. Other variations, kitab and hikmah, is the kitab and the understanding of the kitab. Right? The kitab and the understanding of the law, or the law and the spirit of the law. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, and to purify them. Okay. Now here's a question. The prophet, peace be upon him, has the ability to purify people. I think this question we might have perhaps discussed before. We have in Faith Foundations, we had this question a few times. What does it mean to purify someone? Like if the prophet, one of his functions is to purify people. A couple understandings. One is on the Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment for the people who are entering paradise, what happens before you enter paradise? You're going to meet the prophet, peace be upon him, at this fountain, at this river, and you're going to be washed in this river. And perhaps all of the ill within you is all going to be washed away so you can enter paradise. Right? That's one meaning here. Another meaning here is exactly what we think of when we think of purification of the heart, that he has this ability to purify you. So there's narrations of, I forgot who, someone came to the prophet, someone who was still struggling with doubt, and the prophet hits him in his chest, right? And then he says, like the feeling of that getting hit was so huge, he said, I never had doubt again. Right?
Isn't it also after someone died, he put like an olive branch by their grave as a means of forgiving their sins or something?
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'm not familiar.
It's like the leaf on the grave, and like as long as the leaf is green, they're doing like the so like the.
Well, cool. So, yeah. So the question from there. Look at these things. How many of these things can a non-prophet do, like a scholar? Yatlu alayhim ayatuka. Can a non-scholar recite the ayahs of Allah? Yeah. Can a non-scholar teach you the kitab? Yeah. Can a non-scholar, or not a non-prophet, can a scholar teach you the kitab? Yeah. Can a prophet teach you the wisdom? Can a scholar teach you the wisdom? Yeah. Can a scholar purify you? Dun dun dun. Some people, sorry?
Like you're saying, like the way the prophet did it was like miraculous almost.
Seems like it. So is that knowledge that a scholar can attain?
Yeah.
So I have met people over the years here and there, like one person who could smell sins on people. Right? We probably talked about this, right? And he says it smells like sewage. Like you can smell their sins. And I think he could smell specific sins. I don't know if he could smell all sins. So if you could smell sins on people, hypothetically, or if you could recognize sins on people. I know someone else who can also recognize, or I knew someone who can recognize particular sins on people's faces. The sin had nothing to do with their face, but they can recognize it on their face. So if you can recognize the sins on people, then can you potentially purify them? You know what genre this talks about? The movies. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, it becomes more of an academic point.
They were fighting over it, so.
You got one wheel on the tile and you put them all on the carpet.
Why is that bothering you?
It's just imbalance. I need the balance.
The balance, the justice.
So essentially, what did you say?
I said the justice.
That was a very prominent Muslim speaker at the 9/11 memorial in Washington D.C. that was nationally broadcasted.
Oh, wow.
We pray for everyone to have the justice. Seriously, man. Can we just send our white guy there? You know, back then our white guy was Hamza Yusuf. You know. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so Ibrahim alayhi salam is making this prayer, and he's also giving these descriptions. Now put all four of these functions together: reciting the ayah, teaching the kitab, teaching the hikmah, and purifying them. Give me a picture of what's being described here, or if you can think of anything that's not being included among these four things.
What's your question?
So we have four functions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, here, as Ibrahim alayhi salam is making this request. And in Surah Jummah, we have almost the exact same list in slightly different order. So, one function is to recite the ayahs. Okay. Another is to teach the book. Okay. Another is to teach the hikmah, which all goes hand in hand with the ayahs, right? Recite the ayahs and also teach what they mean. Okay. And then purify them. You feel like anything's missing. Or
Big jihad, I don't know.
well, one thing that's missing here
legal.
is commanding people. Right? You can theoretically say by looking at this list is voluntary participation. See what I'm saying here? Unless, or if we take that a step further, the voluntary participation is that if I voluntarily follow the Prophet, peace be upon him, these are the benefits that I get. Purification, and then this thorough relationship with the ayat of Allah.
Wait, if we voluntarily follow the teaching,
If we voluntarily follow the Prophet, peace be upon him, here's what I get out of it.
okay.
I get purification. What is the result of purification? If it's in the akhirah, it's paradise. So what am I getting? I'm getting the path to paradise. If it's in dunya, my heart is getting cleaned. And then,
Can't only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify it.
well, this is the question that I was raising. If the Prophet, peace be upon him, has the capability of purifying, then can a non-Prophet do it? But we're already saying someone other than Allah Ta'ala. Right? It's the
But
Prophet.
isn't it like, in every case, wasn't it like, for that, there was the young man who like asked the Prophet, like, can I commit zina or whatever? And then the Prophet's like, he like made dua for him, and that was a form of purification, but it was like through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Sure. If we go from the perspective that all of this is coming through Allah Ta'ala, sure. Or from Allah Ta'ala originally in some capacity, sure. Just like the way it says in the Quran that Jesus, he brought the dead man to life and made the bird, brought the bird to life and everything. Bi-idhnillah, by the permission of Allah. That could be the same case here. So one point I'm making is that the prayer was not to make them make him a warner and a deliverer of good news. That's another common depiction of the Prophet that we have, right? Bashir wa Nadhir, the one who brings good news and the one who warns. Here, the focus is on connecting them to the ayahs of Allah, resulting then in benefit. So one way to frame the Prophet, peace be upon him, is he's saying, look, if you follow me, you got good news. If you don't follow me, you're going to go to hell. Here, it's saying it becomes an intellectual, active relationship. You're learning the revelations. You're receiving the revelations. You're learning them. And as a result, you're getting purified. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. Basically asking how we think of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So one way to think of him is messenger, okay? Which means he's delivering. Okay. Another way to think of him is prophet, which is he's telling you good news or bad news, Bashir and Nadir, right? The way that's being described here is he's messenger, and part of messenger is to deliver, recite the ayahs, and then to guide you on how to practice it. So here it's more model.
So, I mean, 125 through 129, looking overarching,
Yeah.
it's basically kind of describing the narrative of Ibrahim alayhi salam, what Allah's telling you, this is your mission. And your, right?
Allah is telling who?
Telling Ibrahim.
Ibrahim? Keep going.
Yeah.
I see this more as Allah telling Muhammad, peace be upon him. Like, here's what came
Well, he's
before
describing what... Yeah, he's describing... Because it starts with what is, right?
Are
So
you
it's...
commenting on, sorry, can I ask a question, the messenger and the prophet thing? Are you also referring to, those who brought the book, like the Torah, the Injil, things like that, they were referred to as messengers, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to prophets, who actually
Sure.
taught. But, I mean, in the sense that you're saying, like, didn't also those prophets that didn't have a book also were kind of reinforcing the message, or that doesn't count at all because they're just...
I mean, meaning, but they'd have a different function. So what we're saying here is that in terms of the function of the prophet as messenger, is to deliver the book, right? But he's also teaching what does it say, what does it mean, how to do it. And the result of that is purification. So take it from even another perspective, put it all together, what are we saying? If we start from the perspective of purification, that his job is transformation. That the deen is focused on transformation, right? In contrast to adherence, okay, I got to fulfill all these obligations, right? Deep into that, my job is transformation of myself. Okay. So let me say the whole thing in a different perspective. That the common notion among scholars is that if you were to make a list of everything you and I are supposed to do, everything, it can't be complete in one lifetime. So this is a scholarly outlook. That if you really look at everything we're supposed to do, it can't be done in one lifetime. Right? Which means what? Either we're all going to go to hell, a'udhu billah, or, what's the lesson to take from that? That my goal is to figure out what can I do and how to improve the quality of that and how to improve the number of things that I'm doing. See what I'm saying? Which focuses on transformation. So, think of a function of the Prophet, peace be upon him, as guiding you towards transformation. And if you understand our deen from that perspective, that our deen is focused on transformation, I think you have a deeper understanding of deen. Right? The transformation begins with listening and obeying. But listening and obeying should also lead to transformation too. Your question?
Me?
Yeah, you were saying about Ibrahim. Does that make sense?
I was kind of just trying to get a broader framework for it. So, Prophet, peace be upon him, is being told, consider this narrative of the commands, like the mission we gave to Ibrahim.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, is essentially saying that this is the stage set now for you, kind of.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to use. One of the functions of Ibrahim alayhi salam was to set the stage for you. Right? Here, they literally set the stage. Here, they built the Kaaba. They cleaned it up and everything. And it's ready for you to come 4,000 years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, is the Day of Judgment, Day of Justice?
Tomorrow.
Are you saying, is the Day of Judgment the Day of Justice?
Yeah.
Yes.
The justice.
Yeah.
Then, like, if no one can earn heaven by themselves,
Then it becomes the Day of Rahmah. Or whoever Allah wishes to give it to. That's why Yom Ad-Din, a better translation is the Day of Transaction, or Day of Accounting. Day of Judgment is essentially what we're taking in from other traditions. Like, you'll hear me bring up this complaint periodically, like when I get into what does the word really mean, and part of the reason is because a lot of times the definitions we give to words are there because that's already what's in the air. But, like prayer, the easy example, when a Christian is referring to prayer, and a Muslim is referring to prayer, they're not the same thing, right? And even then, when a Muslim is referring to prayer, referring to salah, or referring to dua, tawaf is a prayer, right? Tawaf is a type of prayer. And so that issue plays out in things like the Day of Judgment.
Should we not call it that?
Sorry?
Should we just not
I mean,
just call it Day of Accounting?
it becomes, like, if you say Day of Accounting, you know, people are like, what? You know,
Like, I would see
day of like recompense.
like debits
Like,
and
I use
credits,
that.
and right.
I like it at a khutbah. I started using Day of Recompense, and this guy came up to me after. He's like, "Yeah, you shouldn't say that." But I don't think he understood what I was saying, right? And in fact, I think he told me to go read this one translation, which called it the Day of Compensation. So
that's funny.
But you see the point I'm making, that if we say Day of Judgment, then what we're imagining is like a courtroom, right?
Exactly.
If you say Day of Accounting, then it fits in all the other things, right? All your books are going to get balanced. Everything I owe someone's going to get paid off. Everything someone owes me is going to get paid off. I'm sorry?
Like reconciliation.
Yeah. And so, I mean, because deen is that, the word for debt, same root word dain. And so this idea of this transaction is taking place.
I have a question about, like...
So it's Day of Judgment's not wrong, but you see, like, the image that it gives is different. Yeah.
Like, say you do something and it causes other people to commit more sins, and then they, like... Okay, this is what I'm thinking about, basically. Like, the example...
It's like back when I was a drug dealer.
No, but, like, with, like... This is a dumb example or whatever, I'm going with it. Like, if I share music with someone, and obviously it's, like, not, like, the best word.
So did you purchase it, or did you
Is this
torrent
Bieber?
it?
Or?
I know, I'm just saying, like, I just share.
So we have a hypothetical
No,
Naima.
not like, I'm not talking, like, torrenting. I'm just talking, like, I
Okay.
show you, like, oh, this is a great song.
Okay,
this is
so
whatever.
hypothetical Naima whips out her
sad
collection.
She's just like, great
With
song.
your Napster collection,
Yeah.
right?
Napster, they don't even know what Napster is.
I know, that's like
I
what?
don't know. I totally just made that up.
Yeah. Hypothetical Naima whips out her collection of unreleased Justin Bieber songs, and then her unreleased Tupac. Yeah.
Unreleased.
Yeah.
Keep it to yourself.
I know.
And then, like, I show other people whatever, they, like, start, like, loving this stuff and, like, sharing it, whatever.
Like, this is great, alhamdulillah. Yeah.
And, okay, it's not, like, forget the whole musical instruments, forget, like,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, the content is not great, you know? So do I get bad deeds because they're, like...
That's a good question. So.
Not, yeah. And every other person that is starting listening to this, and they're not focusing on whatever they should be doing, like Islamic.
And you cause the entire corruption
Exactly.
of
And
Islam.
And they all apostates.
We're all
All of
trying to
them.
figure out where it all
Generation,
began.
someone
It all came down to
joined
this
a
one
gang.
Facebook page
Naima.
in April 2014.
I started it.
Yeah.
Totally. No, like...
Yeah, I don't know.
All the
I mean,
millions, that's right, I don't know.
Because there's multiple variables, right? If you said listen to this and listen to the haram, then it's fair to say you'd be held to account, right? If you say listen to this despite the haram, then that's a very different thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a great song, and it's understood you're not talking about the haram.
Yeah.
You're talking about the lyrics, the music, beat, what have you, then that's very much a different thing. If someone takes the haram from that, it seems like you're giving people a bunch of ingredients, a whole package, and they took the poison. Right.
Then what if you do something good, like you start a masjid or whatever, or you
She said so. She's like, by day, she's casting out and she flees. By night, she is in the hajjud. Yeah.
She's going back to foundation. Like, what does Yom Ad-Din mean? Like, what does that really mean?
I want to make sure.
What is a good deed really?
Yeah.
No, but like, okay, say I pay money to like.
So now we're going from hypothetical Naima to real Naima. Yeah.
Say if I pay money to like a hypothetical masjid, and this hypothetical masjid does something like terrible, like really bad
Yeah,
to the
that's not on
community.
you.
Okay, it's not like my fault. Like,
Unless you're giving a donation for the terrible thing.
No, but like whatever money I gave, like that started like people started doing bad things from it. But it was a good intention.
So essentially, no, that's not on you. At some spiritual level, people say your intentions and the legalness of your wealth can have an impact on the barakah that comes out of it. But in terms of a basic fiqh perspective, no. See what I'm saying? From a Sufi perspective, it can potentially, right? Like, if my wealth is not legit halal and everything, and I donate it, inshallah, I get rewarded for that. But I shouldn't expect too much barakah to come from it. right? From a fiqh perspective, no, it's totally legal. Yeah. You're not held to account for what they do with your money, assuming that it's understood that you're giving it, for support of the masjid and all that, right?
So if somebody gives you interest for something, like you don't want it, but they just
You should probably.
years, like, what do you do with that? You don't want to donate to the masjid because
if it's well, I mean, I don't think it's a problem there. It's just, I mean.
Oh, you can. It's not like.
But it comes down to
Give to the church.
you're not expecting any reward. So
Give them the haram money.
give it to the church. Yeah.
No, what can you do with that?
Give it and don't expect reward.
Yeah, that's why I heard that if you can give it for like donation, but you won't get rewarded.
I mean, again, if you weren't asking for it, that wasn't part of the deal.
Yeah, if it.
And you're not in a position to say, no, you keep this, right? Depending upon our relationships, even if you say this is against my belief system, in our culture, most people say, oh, I'm so sorry, right? But if for whatever reason you can't do that, then give it away. Maybe, inshallah, I'll give you a reward for getting rid of the interest. Maybe he'll give you a reward for where you give it to. If, however, you're charging the interest, and then you're giving it away, you should definitely not expect reward. But that seems like it's merit-worthy, meritorious. Yeah. Okay. This last point, in terms of imagining the Prophet, peace be upon him, going back to this point of purifying them, I don't know that the word purifying them is used for Moses, peace be upon him, delivering the kitab and the Furqan to the children of Israel. Okay. So what are we saying that for there? For the children of Israel, they're being given, here's the law, now follow it. Okay. Whereas the Sahaba are being given, here's the book to transform you, to make you better and better at following it. So we're effectively saying, potentially, is that with the children of Israel, there was an exercise in failure. It was going to happen, because there was not a process of transformation taking place.
So when he says purifying, it's not necessarily that Muhammad is ordained with the task to purify. He's there to teach them the Quran so that they can transform themselves.
So I think you can read it both ways, literally. That he's teaching them the Quran, what it means, which will result in them getting purified. Mm-hmm. Or he may be given something.
Like some secrets of the Sawwaf?
Or of the unseen. That there are definitely narrations of him doing things related to the unseen. There's this narrative of him doing what looks like, imagine a coffee pot.
So excited.
And like a cup.
She's a Sufi dude.
Dude, I'm excited to hear this. Go on.
Okay, so he does this thing with like a coffee pot. Like, imagine him holding a coffee pot, peace be upon him, and pouring it into a cup. But there's nothing there. He's going like this, right? As though he's somehow doing something with the unseen, reaching into the unseen, pouring something into some vessel, and I forgot what he does. I don't know if he drinks it or something. He does.
So there's no coffee pot and there's no cup.
He's going like this. What you see me doing.
Like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't his entire life just totally covered with miracles and things like that? From
Definitely.
The time when he was a child, and obviously the goat and everything that had on his milk.
The key difference that I'm making here is those are things around him.
Yeah.
These are things that he's doing.
Yeah, and that too.
Yeah.
I'm sure his whole life was full of miracles.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You're saying so, no big deal.
No, I'm just saying like healing properties, literally like the healing properties of his hair. People actually, using the water from his river. I don't know.
Along those notions. See what I'm saying? That it seems like he does seem to have something, right? And beyond that, Allah knows best. So the point is, I'm saying both readings, that you are getting transformed and purified through learning about and obeying and following the book, as well as something else that he has the capacity to do.
Well, what do you think about these guys, man? Who are like these, Sufi masters, the silsila big guns, like Mohammed Keller and like Sheikh Zulfikar and these guys. I think they have
their
something.
students
really do believe that they have some powers of.
I'm definitely open to it.
Yeah.
Right. And all of us growing up watching superhero movies, we want to believe that there is something there too, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the kid in me also wants to believe that there's something there, but I'm definitely open to it as a possibility. It should not be something to rely upon, though. Yes.
Isn't that just like gush?
So, I mean, it would be all in the realm of Kash, Karamat, all those things. Kash meaning an unveiling of reality. Karamat being these miracles that Allah puts through you. Even like the idea of flying or teleporting, right? Never seen it happen. People talk about it like, yeah, it can. So,
Can you elaborate on what he's talking about? I don't really know about
So like, you got these Sufi tarikats, these Sufi networks, and at the top you're going to have the super sheikh, who is super knowledgeable, right? So it's not just like a savant who just has this special gift. Like, this is a super sheikh who knows, who's been taught the tradition thoroughly. Do they have abilities like, things that defy physics, right?
Isn't it more like they just like for example, with the sins, like, I don't know what I think, he was saying that he knew of someone who, when they were doing wudu, like, they could see your sins being washed off you.
Yeah, and I'm saying, I have the example of someone who could smell sins, right? And so, those are things that I've, witnessed and tested, like, right. I didn't, commit particular sins.
I'm not really pointing at sort of miraculous physical things that they're doing that are defying physics and that sort of thing. I'm just talking about the whole notion of purification. That these sheikhs do actually have the knowledge which they believe to be sacred, directly handed down, all dating, going all the way back to Abu Bakr and then to Prophet Muhammad, that this is a sacred knowledge that's been preserved and passed down through generations, that they are the descendants or the heirs of, right?
Yeah.
and so when their students come to them with certain diseases that they have of the heart or whatever, like the sheikh, even before the students saying it, they already know what they are, and it makes it easy for the students to communicate those, have that kind of faith in them. And I just heard a lot of people, even, and I know Rehan, right? Rehan Khan, Arjuman Rehan.
I probably do.
So Rehan's a big student of Hussein Sadar's, and he'd give me all these stories of like how, without saying anything, Hussein was able to pick up on certain things from his students, and give them prescriptions of what to do and what to read and what times of the day and that sort of thing, and what prayers you can do, what things that you can do to help you cleanse yourself and purify yourself with these sins.
Does it work?
And it works. That's the thing.
That's that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at efficacy.
Yeah.
Right. If doing such and such steps works, then alhamdulillah.
And that's the whole thing with these folks, is that like they actually have what really seem like cures for some of these diseases,
Yeah, and so the question becomes, and I think it's true for both of the options that I'm giving, have they been taught to look for signs and symptoms, and then here's a cure, right, just like physician, or do they have an intuitive sense that they've been nurtured and taught? And I think both of them can probably be true. Yes. Like there's a concept of firasa. The idea being that, okay, you can just look at someone and just know things, right? That some people are gifted with. Something about your own purity, you can see a pure person versus a person with ill intentions. So I'm definitely saying I think there's something there, and I want there to be, this whole secret book. All this stuff.
Did you by any chance listen to the Jamaat IFS?
When?
It was this Friday. It was
He's like, yeah, we don't go to Jamaat, we just do Quran. Kidding.
No, but Mufti Azimuddin was talking about how Jibril Islam came down to the Prophet
was that the first one or the second?
Yeah, it was the first one. And he came down to the Prophet and he hugged him, and that's how the initial message came, to the Prophet.
Yes.
Right. And then he was talking about the golden, or I don't remember the exact word he said, but it's an unbroken chain. No, but the lights are Allah not just the Prophet. But I think what really stuck out to me, and I think it made me, I'm I don't think it's a proponent of Sufism, but it totally hit home with me about Sufism, that relationship with someone else. I think he was just saying how Islam is, there'll be a point where all the scholars will be, you know, lifted from the earth or pass away or whatever, and all we'll be left with is like books and all this stuff, but people won't have knowledge. And like he was saying, like Islam, I think it's a very like lived religion, you know, like the Quran, it's like a message and it's complete, and it's, you know, people can become Muslim, but I think like that relationship with people, I think is very, very important. And I think like that initial, like Jibreel alayhi salam came and hugged the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's really how the message was.
Yeah, and the whole message was actually delivered by someone, not something that he just was transmitted.
Right.
And it was, and he was asked to teach and not just recite.
Yeah.
You know, that there was a teacher-student relationship from the inception of the revelation.
Because I think like there's so many things in Islam I don't think like I can understand with my knowledge. Like even like the status of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like you know, we know we're supposed to love him, and I know that, but like you can't feel that unless you're with people who really, really love him, you know?
It's very true.
And like,
very true.
You know, you don't like get that feeling like, oh man, like I really love him, until you see other people and like what they say, and you really, I mean, I don't know what happens, but something happens to your heart and you're like, oh wow, it's subhanAllah.
It's one reason I love like hanging around some of these Sufi guys.
Yeah.
And especially like Sheikh Samar. I mean, just his passion, and it can't help but like affect you and rub off on you. Really, so it's very valid.
I actually had a question then about like wahi and stuff, because if it was like so painful, then how is it going through Jibreel? Like, because when he came as the angel, it wasn't. I mean, after the first time, it wasn't painful, was it? So then, what is wahi? How is?
But it was painful many times.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I know wahi was painful, but being with the angel was.
Oh, that I don't know.
I think it was only when the message was coming that it was just so heavy on his heart, because the message was heavy. But there are times when the Hadith Jibreel was revealed. He was sitting knee to knee with his hands on his thigh or whatever, and that was not painful, right? I mean, but it was just when the message came down. The message itself was so heavy on his heart that it caused a lot of pain.
Yeah, but that would not be called wahi, right? That would be, wahi would be actual ayahs.
So the wahi is painful then.
I think there's a chapter in Riyadh al-Salihin, just hadith, where companions are describing his experience.
Yeah, like
why he comes. Yeah, he explained it in detail. There's like a whole chapter.
What I'm really asking is though, that what is the difference between wahi and then Angel Jibreel like teaching the Prophet ﷺ? Because they're totally different to me.
So wahi gets categorized as recited wahi and non-recited, right? So recited wahi is Quran. Non-recited wahi would be essentially everything else. And so recited wahi would be the Prophet receiving ayahs. And then non-recited would be everything, including hadith Qudsi.
But then, like, what is Angel Jibreel's job? Because if he's receiving it through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, what is Angel Jibreel's?
So he's the teacher.
But he's already receiving it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Who is?
The Prophet.
Through Angel Jibreel, right? Angel Jibreel is the one who's giving to him.
So that's what that from Angel Jibreel.
So Allah Ta'ala, so everything is coming from Allah Ta'ala through Angel Jibreel, right? And so, what?
No, I'm just saying everything's going back to the basics. Like,
yeah, she's like, like these classes are ruining my mind. I gotta reestablish.
No, like
next week she's gonna be like, okay.
What are the 5 pillars?
No, she's gonna be like, just in case anyone's wondering, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Yeah.
I've heard that there's only 2 like pieces of revelation from the Quran which came directly.
Yeah, last 2 ayahs of Al-Baqarah. Yeah. That's in the night.
The rest of it was taught like from.
So it's all coming from Allah Ta'ala, right? And except for the last 2 ayahs, it's coming through Angel Jibreel. And what Angel Jibreel is giving him is our ayahs when it's time to give ayahs, and then other things. Like, but the teacher-student relationship, I think, is almost the best way to describe it, because even that moment where he's sitting in front of him, it's like a test, right? And then, for example, every Ramadan, the Prophet has to recite the whole thing that he's received. And then if you really want to make it fun, so the metaphor of the teacher-student relationship, when they're on the night journey, there's a point where Jibreel alayhi salam says, "Okay, I can't go any further. Now you have to go." right? And so that's totally the metaphor of the teacher-student relationship, where at some point you want the student to surpass the teacher, right? The student to reach further higher, you know? Or, in other words, at some moment the teacher has to let the student go. Now you have to go without me. You know? I think of all the worldly things that we're familiar with, I think the teacher-student relationship is the best way to describe it. But that's the best way is Jibreel alayhi salam to Muhammad.
How are the last two islands?
Night journey. So when the Prophet met with Allah Ta'ala, and whatever that means, he received those ayahs. And then what we recited in Salah, At-Tahiyyatu Lillahi, that was the conversation. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions?
No. On the night journey? What conversation on that?
Anything. Night journey.
No, I'm saying like
Justin
At-Tahiyyatu
Bieber.
Lillahi, like.
So that was the conversation.
And the night journey.
And the night journey.
Yeah.
التحيات لله والصلوات والطيبات السلام عليكم أيها النبي.
So we went through 129, that's it?
Yes. So essentially what have we covered? 124, Ibrahim alayhi salam gets tested. And he's told he's an imam. And then he asks about his children. And he says he's told my covenant is not for the wrong people. And then they're told to rebuild the house, purify it for all the people who are going to be coming later on. And then he makes this long, he and his son make this long series of du'as. They make a du'a for, where's our Banat Qabla Minna? They make this du'a. And 126, they make a du'a for the city, and then they receive a response for that. They make a du'a, oh Allah, accept our efforts. And then they make a dua, okay, make us Muslims, and then they make this dua, teach us how to fulfill our obligations. This is a point that matters of ibadah, the general notion is you can't use just plain reason to figure them out. It comes from revelation. How to do salah. You can make sense of it after the fact, but can someone on their own figure out the details of salah? So I gave the example that Luqman alayhi salam, he figured out salah, right? How much in depth? I understand his salah essentially to be sajda, right? And then, what else? Then they pray for a messenger.
Why do you suppose they doubted their submission?
I don't know if they're doubting it. I think they're completing, they are also seeing their iman as fragile.
I see.
You know. So I'd say that's it's qualitatively it's different than an actual doubt. It's Allah Ta'ala, don't lead me off the path. Because the true reality, like when we were discussing the story of the, I think it was the people of the fish, and around those ayahs, it said if it was not for the fadl and the rahmah of Allah, you'd have been lost. And the lesson we had from there is that any time I commit a sin, I'm literally off the path, and it's nothing but the mercy of Allah. That keeps me on the path, especially if I don't do anything about it. Right. And so I think they're recognizing the frailty of iman. Frailty is not the right word, the way that they can get lost. Yeah.
With respect to the different tariqas, which ones do you know? I mean, like, so there's Shahili,
Yusuf.
Milham Keller. What are the other major ones?
There's Qadri.
Who's that?
Dr. Omer Sheikh Amin.
Dr. Omer?
Yeah, they're Qadris. So you grew up out here. Do you guys remember Jafar Qadri? Mm-hmm. He was like all our Sunday school teachers. So he was a Qadri.
Do they all of these trace them back to Abu Bakr?
See, this is the interesting thing. In theory, yeah. So accepted, right? But Qadri is named after Abdul Qadir Jilani in the 1200s. Right. You have the Shadalis, I forgot when they trace themselves back to. A lot of them, like from essentially the 1100s to the 1500s, is where a lot of the major tariqas are from. Mevlevi, Rumi.
That's Rumi.
Yeah. Let's see.
Chishti
is essentially from Khaja Muhyiddin Chishti from the subcontinent, Mr. Gharib Nawaz. Gharib Nawaz is one of those titles.
Oh.
I've seen like Shadi where it's like I've seen the whole trace of teachers all the way back to Ali.
Yeah, they all do. Yeah,
That's Ali, right?
Yeah.
and with some of the companions, whichever companion, you have Hussein. He's Bektashi.
Oh, your brother.
So Bektashi is.
Bektashi is an order that you find more often in Eastern Europe. Former
It's like an
Turkish.
Ottoman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? There's not a few big ones that I'm forgetting. Tijani.
Tijani.
You find among Africans. Right.
Is it the Deobandi one?
So Deobandi itself is not one. But you have many Deobandis who are Sabri Chistis. So Sabri, Nahari, Kharib, Nawaz, okay, that's all basically, they're all Sufis. They're saying by the
So
time.
you're saying
Yeah.
Well, really, I
Yummy
didn't-
is pretty much
Oh my God.
prayer. Is that what you're
it's
saying?
Basically,
It's
yeah.
Yusuf. It's
Yeah.
like-
Yeah.
So they're just Sufi restaurants.
Yeah, basically, yeah. There's essentially like about 10 major ones, 12 major ones.
The Qadri is the major worldwide
Qadri is
one,
like
right?
the big. It's like one of, if not the big ones.
And isn't that the biggest one like in India too?
It's
Like worldwide,
huge
it's in
India.
Syria. I mean, they're from
It's all
Hadramaut, right? Is that where they started, basically?
I don't know where they started.
It's,
But.
and
Habib Ali al-Jifri,
yeah,
Habib Omar bin Hafiz, they're Ba Alawi. So that's another group. Some other ones that I'm and Naqshbandi is its own.
Naqshbandi is on, yeah.
Naqshbandi.
Yeah, Naqshbandi.
That's the same.
The same as Naqshbandi. And then you'll find people who that are part of multiple silsilas.
Okay, you're it. Go.
Was he actually counting for?
No, I just can't.
They're playing over so many.
It's just interesting how there's such a, like, they don't look highly upon each other, you know?
I don't think that's what they're supposed to be taught. What they're supposed to be taught is we're all family.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And so look at it in the way we look at the schools of fiqh. So the fiqh side is one thing, and then the tazkiyah side is another thing.
Yeah.
I had a question. Okay, so we're on the section, the fourth section, right?
Yeah.
And so the overarching view is this is now.
So this is a couple things. Transition. Ummah of Musa to Ummah of Muhammad, starting by we're claiming Ibrahim alayhi salam.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to see much more in the latter part. It's about sabr.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
like the word that is used in. So
What you said, key.
yeah, so yuzaki. So how is that different from like the
Nice question. Tahara often gets more associated with physical things. Tazkiyah is more of, like the heart, in my experience. So you don't see the word tazkiyah. I don't think that I've ever seen the word tazkiyah in like a chapter on wudu, right? Which is always kitab al-tahara. You might see tahara the other way in a Sufi text, right? But in a fiqh text, I don't think you see tazkiyah.
And what does that word like root word? What does that?
I used to know this, but I don't remember actually. Yeah, I gotta look that up. Because it is something different. Yeah. Any other questions about anything at all? Downstairs. Okay, so I'll stop here. And then so someone make a note that we are on so 1:30. Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك